All right, well, it's now 6 o'clock, and we will open the Wellfleet Select Board meeting with the Finance Committee on Tuesday, January 7th at 6 p.m., 2020, at the Wellfleet Senior Center. We'll begin with announcements, open session, and public comments from the board, and then the public. Remember that we will not be able to deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during this comment period. Any announcements or comments from the board? Mr. Hort?
I have one that I'd like to read to everybody, and it is just to emphasize what an impact everybody in this room and everybody at town meeting has on people in the town and how we can be family friendly. And it's an email that one of our residents sent to Suzanne Grout Thomas. Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. First, I just wanted to thank you and the Select Committee from the bottom of my heart for the preschool voucher. My twin boys are able to be in school because of it. They are 3 years old, and school has been absolutely amazing for them. They have grown and learned more than I could ever imagine, and this wouldn't have happened without the assistance from you and the town of Wellfleet. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I just think it's great to hear from somebody like that of what a positive impact one of our actions at town meeting had on them. So
Good. Thank you. Kathleen?
Good evening, Wellfleet. Many of you may be aware that my turn for re-election comes this May. These 3 years have passed very quickly, and at great thought, I have made the decision not to run for re-election. I am at a point in my life where I would like to be able to do other things, and I would like the opportunity, or the freedom rather, not to be an elected official, to pursue opportunities as they come up. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the town and you, the residents, in this capacity. I am grateful for the experience. I wish the best for whomever gets this seat. There is much work ahead, and this is not by any means a small job. To those of you who sought me out without complaint, bless you. Know that it meant the world to me. All of your support and all of your thanks during my 3 years as a selectman never made this a thankless job for me. I want you to know that. I will always be, my heart will always be deeply attached to this community. Don't ever doubt it. But for me, it's onward. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kathleen, and I'm dismayed to hear it.
I'd rather not have you editorialize it, Janet, but
I'm not going to editorialize. I'm just telling you how I feel, and that you play a very important role in this community, and I think the community appreciates that. Yep. Okay. Anyone from the audience with an announcement or comment? All right.
I have an announcement, actually.
I'm sorry, Mike. Okay, go ahead.
Just that there was a housing meeting last night, and they discussed Lawrence Road, and I think the meeting went really well, and looking forward to a great project, and I think Kathleen has really spearheaded it, and everyone should be thankful to her. Good work that she's put in.
thank you.
Mr. Barron?
I just want to remind
Please go to the mic.
I just want to remind the Select Board and everybody else that tomorrow at 3 o'clock, there's a meeting of the Dredging Committee,
Oh, yeah,
and there will be a presentation by the engineer from GEI, I believe it is, on the dredging, on progress and what's going to be happening there. So if you're interested in finding out what's going on with dredging, tomorrow at 3 o'clock, Town Hall.
I think it's in the basement room, yes? The lower room?
it's set up in the second floor conference room, but if we need to, we'll move it and put it
Okay,
in the
because with
basement.
this announcement,
Yep.
we might need that. Okay, thank you. Helen?
I think this qualifies. With regard to dredging, last night there was a very good Shellfish Advisory Board meeting during which there was input regarding the dredging project concerns regarding the dredging project that are also being looked at for the Herring River, and I sincerely hope that you get those before your meeting. You could contact the chair or the secretary, Zach Dixon. I'm just saying, okay? And it's a really good meeting worth looking at, on video. It was
good.
unusual.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the audience? All right, we will then move on to the marina fee schedule hearing, public hearing. And here comes Mike.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here tonight to propose a change in the fee schedule at the marina. Currently, we have 2 seasons down there. We have the in-season, which is our summer season, runs from May 15th to October 15th. Then we have an off-season, which would be the rest of the fall, spring, winter. What I propose here tonight is to create a 3rd season, that being the winter season. The winter at the marina is the most difficult time of the year, and we're most susceptible for damage to our equipment, our docks, and boats. So we thought it would be appropriate to make a new fee for that season. And I hope you got my readout here. The changes are all in italics, and I've highlighted them. So the off-season dockage is currently $22 a night or $131 a week. The Marina Advisory suggested that we create for mooring holders at the end of the summer season, make space available for them in the slips for $200. That would be from September 1st to October 15th. $200 for non-commercial, for recreational. For mooring holders that come out of the mooring basin because, the birds really do damage to their boats if they leave them in there. At that time of the year when the boats are leaving, and we have room available, so we thought that would be an appropriate fee for people to finish out the season in a slip. That brings me to the commercial off-season. My feeling is that we separate these into 2 sections, one being the off-season, running from April 1st to May 14th, or October 16th to November 31st, and then the other season would be the winter season. The off-season commercial fishing vessels greater than 25 feet would be $250. That's for 45 days, which translates into $5.56 a day. The larger vessels, are greater than 25 feet. Did I not put that in?
Other way, yeah. I know, I hate those little things.
Anyway, the larger vessels off-season for that 45 days would be $250. The smaller vessels would be $150. Now, if these commercial vessels wanted to leave their boats in for the whole winter, I would propose that the fishing vessels under 25 pay $750, and the vessels over 25 feet pay $1,500. That winter season is 121 days. The cost breaks down to the larger vessels being $12.40 a day, or for the smaller vessels being $6.20 a day, $750. So that's pretty much it. My other feeling would be that if someone were to decide to leave their vessel in for the winter season and the ice appeared and they felt that they should get their boat out, which I think would be a very prudent idea, we wouldn't charge them to store it up in the parking lot, as that's another fee for winter storage. $1,500 and $750 for the smaller vessels. Yeah, well, I think I didn't do this correctly here. But yeah, the winter dockage is from December 1st to March 31st. This is the time when the marina is the most susceptible to damage.
Nice.
That's why I propose these new fees. Another issue that we'd like to see would be the all dockage, storage, and insurance fees be paid before the boat takes the slip or the position in the parking lot. And just a reminder that all these fees are tax deductible for commercial people. So if anybody has any questions, I hope I can answer them.
Okay, Helen had her hand up first.
Yeah,
as
thank you
always.
for the memorandum on the back of the schedule, fee
Yeah.
schedule. But once again, I reveal my ignorance. Is the difference between a larger boat, over 25 feet, and a smaller boat simply that one of them takes up more space than the other, or is there another reason why they're being charged more?
Well, it is that they take up more space, but also they're heavier too. So when they're in the ice, they would do more damage as the ice moves them around and damage the docks that we have in,
You can
if
te-
they get stuck in the ice.
You can tell that I don't have a boat. Now, the second question I had, and there's no need to discuss it now, but in my opinion, you have an enterprise fund, and, you organize it the way you need to organize it, and then we all look at you and yell at you, or don't. We say this is fine. But one of the things in the memorandum was, with future projects planned at the marina, and so I'm just slipping this in here, wondering what those future projects are, and this is an agenda item that we're not going to discuss now. But in my opinion, you didn't need to have any reason to change these fees other than, here's the last question. Do you feel that this better compensates the workload and the attention and the paperwork that your department needs to do, this raise of fees?
I think it will help, yes.
Okay, thank you. So that's part of the rationale. It's not just like, oh, let's charge them more. Thank you.
Right. Kathleen?
I have 3 questions, Mike. First question is, this change in the fees, has this all been vetted by the Marina Advisory Committee
Yes, it has,
in a positive nod from that?
yes.
Yeah, you voted at our last meeting to recommend all the changes that Mike has made.
Okay, second question, how do we compare with, maybe Provincetown or Chatham?
I know some people are going to argue with me about this, but we're much lower than any other marina on the Cape.
I never ask a question I don't already know the answer to. Thank you.
Mike?
So I just want to clear a few things up here. Right now for off-season is 1 season, correct?
Yes,
And the cost of that right now is $150
and
and $250 for the whole winter.
yes.
So this would add, for a larger vessel, by my calculations, a total of a 800% increase in just 1 season. And that seems like an awful lot to be increasing on. I think there's probably 10 or 11 boats probably in the harbor at that time over that full winter season. So it would go from $250 to about $2,000 for a 25-foot vessel. And I just don't think I can support something that's going to sort of tax our commercial fishing industry. If we need to raise revenues another way, I would think that, you know, all the recreational boaters and yachts in the harbor and whatever could pony up a little bit more and equal that fee. I just think our harbor was built as a commercial fishing harbor, and the fleet is diminished, and the people who work it in the winter, providing income for their families or jobs for people, especially on the larger boats. A $2,000 increase is not nothing. And so I just,
Well, it would
I'm
be,
having trouble seeing the,
it would be a $1,200 increase.
Yeah, where do you get
12.50.
2,000?
1,200.
And if you
no,
look,
if you do a full, so if you do the 1,500 plus the 2 off-season,
no, that is no longer, that has been changed from, to a recreational. Off-season
So-
dockage
okay, so-
for recreational boaters who don't have a mooring would be 22 and 131 a
but
week.
if you're off-season commercial, you pay $250 for April to May,
Yeah,
and you pay $250 again for
Okay,
October
that-
to November.
that point I'd like to clarify a
Okay.
little bit.
Yeah,
If the boat was going to stay in until November 31st, then it would be $250.
okay,
But if they're going to stay in for the whole winter, then it would be $1,500.
so a total of 1,500 it
Yes.
would be for a 25-foot vessel to stay for
over
the
25.
off-season.
Yes.
So it's going from 250 to 1,500 then, if you
But
stayed
you-
for the
it's a
whole.
longer period, too.
Well, do people have to remove their boats right now?
They're
What's the,
supposed to. The end of the season is October 15th of our regular season.
have boats ever been completely out of the harbor?
Oh, yeah.
Like all the boats have been out of the harbor
Well,
before?
usually the bigger ones stay on the
Right.
elk pier, but we have never collected a fee for that.
Right. So I don't have a problem with the fee. I just think it's a large jump in the amount. And given what our harbor's for and the sort of economic pressure on the fishing industry as it is, I think it's a little bit, I think it's a little too steep to tax the fishing fleet while ignoring the fact that the major use of the harbor is between, you know, our summer months. That's when it's the most busy, that's when there's the most boats in the harbor, that's where there's pressure for space and parking. I mean, let's be honest, the harbor is pretty empty most of the winter, so.
Well, you see, we have to remove our equipment or it gets destroyed in the ice. I wish I brought some pictures of years past when we lost pilings, we've lost docks. And I remember many a night down there with a chainsaw cutting the ice around the floats so we wouldn't lose them.
I
It's something I want to
understand that.
try to avoid because it's easy to take them out when it's warm than it is in the middle of the winter when the ice is forming and you have to get them out.
I can understand that. I still think it's too much of an increase personally. That's where I am on the subject.
Okay, but
I
I
think
just-
that, yeah.
I would just like to say that if you compare the rates to other towns, you'll see that whatever it is they pay for the summer and the $1,500 for the year, for the winter, it's far less than any other marina on the Cape.
Yeah, I aware. You also get a certain amount of facilities here. Like if you compare it to Provincetown, there's a pretty state-of-the-art harbor, has all the facilities, modern facilities and amenities. We do not have that here, and you know, so I think it's apples to oranges a little bit.
Here's
but-
another issue the electricity. The winter, the bigger boats have to use a lot more electricity.
Again, I'm not saying that I think no fee is in order. I just think it's a large jump.
Yeah, I'm
From-
just
from
trying to
nothing to-
justify
yeah.
my reasons for
I
making
understand
that
that,
jump.
Jim,
Okay, Kathleen?
can I ask my third question?
Certainly.
Mike, when was the last time you had a fee increase?
Thank you.
Good question.
Can't remember, can you?
Not really, not offhand.
Point made. Thank you.
That was going to be my first question. So, as we know, we're going to get a beginning for the dredging next fall. And as we also know from other meetings, your revenue from recreation, it's hard to get into the harbor. And if I remember correctly, your recreational people coming into the harbor and using it is down, and you're making less money out of that. Is that true still?
Transient dockage is down,
Yes.
yes.
So it's been down a bit, and we've gotten figures for this. I want to tag on to what Mike said, because I would hope that once it's easier to get into the harbor, that those recreational users' fees would go up.
Of course, yes, and we're
But we don't want that next summer, because it's still going to be hard.
Yeah.
And I have to say, one of the things that's different right now is that there are 11 boats now. 11? There are 11 boats that are being used for, dragging, okay? People are going out and fishing off boats. There we go.
Currently?
English is not my first language. So those people really do need to be out there. And I would like to see that fee for those commercial users be a tiny bit lower. Not that much, just a bit, so that there's at least a feeling that we are responding to this new use of the harbor, which is a good one, with people fishing as long as they can when there's no ice. Everything else looks good to me. So that's my one thought. Even if it's just $200 or $300 less. Do you see what I'm saying? They can write it off, but I think that maintaining a boat is really expensive. Again, they get to deduct it, but I would like to cut them some slack with that. So I'm tagging on to what Mike's saying. It is a big raise, and otherwise everything here looks good to me. And I look forward to having the fees for recreational users go up when they can make, have it be easier.
Well, one of the reasons that we did want to propose these fees was what has ended up being the marina is a winter storage area. We have vessels down there, they put them in the spring, and they don't come out. And you know what they pay? Nothing.
Ah,
I would hope that people would be smart enough, boat owners, to remove their vessel when winter approaches, because I don't think they understand what the ice will do to their boat during the winter. If we get socked in, like we have, when was it, 2 years ago in December?
It's happened.
Yeah.
And we've had, in the winter, the Navigator sunk in the winter. We tried to make dockage for it over by the fuel dock. It hung up on the bulkhead and it sunk. These are the situations that happen more frequently in the wintertime. That's why I had proposed this fee. And I'd rather, if somebody is seriously going to use their boat, that's fine. But if they're going to put it in there and we babysit it all winter, I don't think that's fair to us or any of the other people that are, take their boats out like they should.
Okay. Any more questions for the, okay, go ahead.
that does alter my perspective. So
Okay.
thank you for telling me that.
Are there any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, go to the mic, please, and identify yourselves. Or, yep.
Hi, my name is Dave Zimba. I'm a commercial fisherman down here. To address a few issues here, fee schedules, comparably to P-Town, we're at $40 a foot. Their annual commercial dockage, year-round, $61 for their boats to tie up there. No winter tie-up, year-round.
Wait, say that again, no what?
No winter tie-up, it's year-round.
Okay.
So currently, we have 11 boats in the harbor. They range from big to little. The new fee schedule would generate about $15,000 in revenue. It's not really much. We have big problems down there that we need addressing. We have big projects coming up we need help for. Mike and Will do a great job down there with what they have, but they need help from us. But to put this all on the 11 people that are down there trying to make a living, it's not fair. We have 300 parking spots down this marina, 60 spots for trailers. Why aren't we charging for parking during the summer? We have two restaurants that make millions off of that parking being free. Why haven't we tried that out? I mean, $10 a head, 300 spots, $3,000 a day. If you need money,
Yeah.
that's the way to do it.
Yeah, just to, as an aside, that is being looked into, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that should be the first thing looked into, rather than charging the people who are trying to keep their lights on for the winter. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Dave, just for your information, we do charge in the summer for trailer storage. It's the same rate as the winter storage.
Well, I'm all for that. I'm all for storage parking. I mean, it's going to cost me money if I went somewhere else to do it. Why not? But the off-season dockage going to $1,500 for a boat, I mean, it's $250 now.
Okay.
It's pretty steep.
You do want to ask him a question? Okay, go ahead, Kathleen.
Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Zimba. Nice to meet you, Dave. You know, my dad was a fisherman. He had a 48-footer that he would take out every winter. It's a labor to take a boat out of the harbor. I get that. But you're looking at this as some kind of, revenue that the town's going to be making. I'm looking at it as liability. There are liability issues with regard to leaving boats in the water unused when the ice comes in, and the town's on the hook for that. If we will, at some point in time, be making, I hope, a ton of money off of parking down there. Nobody wants to make money off the skin off of a fisherman's back. That's not what this is about. I think he's explained the issues that they go through when ice comes in and these boats are down there. So, we hear you.
As a fisherman, I understand these risks all too well.
Yeah.
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
Except for you lose a dock, I lose a boat and a living. So it is in my best interest to haul out.
Yeah.
I agree, and try to, but it doesn't always work out sometimes. Ice comes, it's weather, it's nature, happens.
Yeah.
But to say the liability of the harbor justifies this increase, well, I have the same liabilities, if not greater.
Yeah, oh, well,
Thank you,
we
Kathy.
have insurance, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
My name is Mike Ziemba. I'm a fisherman here in town. I own a boat. When the ice comes in, we remove these floats typically, don't we, Mike?
Yes.
So that's going to jam everyone onto the L pier. And it's going to cause more problems doing that, isn't it?
I don't think so. Why would it?
We already have a damaged L pier, and it's damaged from, boats that come in as transients. Not so much in the wintertime. We've got bolt heads that are sticking out from the pylons. That's damaged my boat in the past. When the ice comes in, I try to get out every year before that. So, last thing I'd want to do is damage the pier or my boat because of the ice. Wish I had taken notes so I could comment on more of your questions and comments.
Okay, well, thank you. I think we get your point. Any other further comments from,
I just have one question. Would it be possible to levy a fee on people who are storing their boats in the water and not using them? I mean, is there a minimum amount of time if the boat doesn't leave harbor in the winter, then impose a fee? I mean, I just really don't want to impact people who are just down there working with large fee like this. If they're responsible take their boats out of the water when the ice is coming. But when there's no ice, and some winters there's no threat of ice, I mean, it hasn't happened for about 4 or 5 years, but there's been long periods of time when we hadn't had severe ice in the harbor. And they're out using their boats on a regular. I'd like to not raise it this much on them.
Well, that's why we play it by ear. We don't take out our final floats until we see that the ice is gonna happen. And by then, if it starts icing up, we have to move boats off the docks before we can take them out. And it's, we're juggling here and juggling there, and then we gotta find a place for them. So that's what becomes very complicated.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead. Yep.
Nathan Davis, I'm a non-resident taxpayer. I have a larger vessel at the pier. I have so for 5 years. I visit many of the harbors on Cape because you have to be versatile to be a fisherman nowadays. In Chatham, I pay $294 for a year-round mooring at the fish pier with a $1,400 parking pass that allows me to unload. In Falmouth, I pay $250 for an off-season rate. In Rock Harbor, $410 for a year-round rate. I've been on a waiting list for a contract for a year-round slip in town for, 5 years. Many generations of my family have docked at this harbor with their full-size vessels all the way down to sail. I'd like to see the waiting list move, and I agree with whatever Mike wants because he does a great job. Both the harbor masters are right on the spot. If something happens at midnight, they're there. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with him, but just wanted to lay it out there as what the fees were around.
Yeah.
And the need to move the waiting list to give contracts to fishermen so they don't have to be a transit. Thank you.
Yeah. That would be nice. I don't know how we do it. I know. Yeah. So I just want to sum it up so we can move on unless there's something new to add. The harbor is really difficult. There's a lot that goes on there. There's a lot that needs to be fixed, but we are limited in many ways. And I just want to say I trust and support Mike because he's in the middle of it all the time, and that if he feels these fees need to be raised to that extent, I support him in that. But I think it's time to move on with the motion.
I have something new I'd like to add.
Oh, good.
So, looking at fees over many years, different kinds of fees, generally, I think it's not a good idea, particularly when you're dealing with any kind of fee that impacts people commercially, their livelihoods, to jump it up to too much at one time. They have their budgets. I understand your rationale. I also know, if, let's say, it was only 1,000, you would be losing, your enterprise fund would be losing 5,500 a year. And I think that these fees should go up at some point. I think that I agree with what Mike said about it being too radical. And forgive me, but I think that instead of 1,500, it should be half that for this year. Given that we're not talking about people for whom this is a luxury addition. And that would mean you would be losing, I didn't do the math yet, but you would only be getting $750 this year, but that would be up from $250, right? So that's a pretty big jump right there. And in my experience, shellfishing, permit, and et cetera fees, all the other years that we've been looking at them, having a really huge jump, even though you haven't upped this for a long time, and even though you have a perfectly good set of reasons for doing it, I would like to not have it jump that much and to only be $750 for this year. Forgive me.
Okay, so we've all said what we think. Do you have something to add, Kathleen?
Yeah, one more question. Madam Chair, to Mr. Flanagan, would you be willing to accept that recommendation from Helen?
Of course I would, yeah.
Okay, so Helen, would you like to make that as an amendment in the motion?
Yes, and I'm looking at you getting more money from different sources really
You
soon.
get that.
Okay, good. So, what I want to do, I want to be sure I refer to it accurately.
So that's 1,500. The smaller boat, you'd want to be the same price?
Yes. In other words, because the issue is getting it out of the water. So whether it's small or large, I understand bigger is more difficult, but I would be happy to have the smaller boat stay at $750, okay? In other words, that would,
Okay, so 750, no length category.
in my opinion, that would work for me. I know, I understand the difference. You explained it earlier because I didn't exactly know what it was. How do we feel about that, people?
I would prefer it to be 750, 500, something like that, commensurate. We always charge by the length of the boat, right?
Okay.
I mean, or
Okay.
something similar.
So, let's do the motion. I move to approve the 2020 marina fee schedule as presented by the harbor master, amended to have winter dockage for commercial vessels over 25 feet from December 1st to March 31st at $750, and winter dockage for commercial vessels less than 25 feet from December 1st to March 31st at $500.
Second?
Any other comments? Do you have any comments, Mike? Okay, wait, we've already talked, yeah. Okay, all in favor? Okay, 2-4, the motion.
Yep.
Are
Which
you
means-
voting yes for it?
Are you voting yes for it?
No,
You don't
Okay.
think it should be reduced?
I do.
Well, that's what we're voting on. I amended
Oh,
it.
you're
Okay.
amending, you're voting,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So it's 3-1.
Oh, wait, so are you voting for what was just read?
Is that the fee I'm voting for, increasing
That's
the
what was
fees?
read, no,
except-
decreasing
Voting to
it.
We amended.
We
Yeah.
amended them,
Okay,
and
yes,
he's voting.
yeah, sorry.
So,
I thought
would you
that was
please
the,
read the amendment again,
Certainly.
just in case someone didn't hear
Well,
it?
I'm reading the whole motion. I move to approve
Yeah.
the 2020 marina fee schedule as presented by the harbor master,
okay.
amended to have winter dockage for commercial vessels over 25 feet be $750 from December 1st to March 31st, and winter dockage for commercial vessels under 25 feet from December 1st to March 31st, $500. The motion includes the amendments.
Okay, second.
Okay, so it's already been seconded. All in favor? Okay, so 3-4, 1 against. Okay.
Thank you.
for all that you do. Okay, so moving on to budget reviews, we have the Shellfish Department first.
Oh, no, don't abstain.
What we got here for there? Okay.
Later, later.
Do you have any comments, or do you want us to start with questions? Because we've all had the information. If people have questions or comments.
I guess my only comment would be that this department has been a little flying under the radar for many years before I took the helm, and I'm really looking to get it to where it needs to be. So I have made some adjustments just in what the cost of doing business is for the department, and I am just trying to get it up to a fully functional department.
Okay. Yep.
Madam Chair, we have a point of order. I think we've taken something out of,
Have we? No, we went from the review, public hearing, marina fee schedule.
Review of the pros.
2020 proposed budgets, and the first one up is the Shellfish Department.
okay, this doesn't come next.
Oh, those are the motions.
Those are the motions for
Okay.
afterwards,
Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. So yeah, good, I think, very good explanation in here. Does the board have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have one, just for public knowledge. I know the answer to this already. Is there anything different in what we got in our packets from you, from what's in this folder that we got, thanks to Dan, quite a long time ago, so we could start looking at it?
So the only difference, I think, from the paperwork I submitted is that last year at town meeting, we created a revolving fund for propagation. And in fiscal year '20, the department is authorized to use $5,000. And I'm working with the town administrator to determine how much we will use from, we started collecting, starting July 1 is when the division will happen. 75% of revenues from the Shellfish Fund, which include commercial and recreational permits and annual grant license fees. So those revenues will now be split. 75% will go into a shellfish revolving fund to be used exclusively for propagation, and then 25% will go to the general fund. And so the town administrator in the budget that he presented to you for propagation budget line 180, I level funded that at 46,000, but he would like to take 40,000 from the revolving fund to fund that, to do exactly what the fund was set up to do to begin with. One of the other things that I am working on is we will probably need to hire a consultant to do the second phase of our MIPA permitting to put culture on the harbor, because not all of the places where the town has historically cultured were included in the original proposal. So I will probably want to draw some funds from the revolving fund to pay for that consultant, because it is about propagation. But we haven't talked about specifics on that yet.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Chavetta, a number of years ago, our health agent, conservation agent, had to go through that whole permitting process.
We still are.
Talking to the mic more, I
Oh,
think.
sorry.
We still are, and
Yeah.
that's phase one.
Yes, but the thing is that I hope that you don't have to reinvent the wheel with a consultant, even though you're paying for it out of sort of your own funds. You know, check that this hasn't already happened in a way that's easily doable again. In other words, it may not be that much of a different, process.
I am working with Hillary on it.
Okay.
She's probably going to continue to be lead on it because of her experience. And then Johnny and I will come to the table with the additional sites, which we already had done, but it was too late to get them included into the current permitting process.
Okay, so the second thing is, tell all of us how much will go back into the general fund from this year. It's nice, it's 25%, right, of what's made.
Of
So-
shellfish receipts. Yep.
Yes, so what is that?
So I would say that on the average, just looking over the past few years, the shellfish department takes in about $100,000. So $25,000 will go into the general fund, and $75,000 will go into the propagation fund. But that only starts this year, so there'll be some ramping up, I guess.
So I have one statement to make about the revolving fund, which is, it brings joy to my heart because it means that the shellfish department doesn't have to do a cliffhanger every year about getting it approved, because you guys need stability. So I'm glad
Yeah.
this is happening, and thank you to both of you.
And each year, we do bring it to town meeting for approval.
But, yeah. But it's not the same kind of cliffhanger it used to be.
Right, it might allow us to do things in the future that we wouldn't really be able to do without a CIP project, a capital improvement plan. So this kind of is a way to take that tax burden off of the taxpayers as well.
Any other questions, comments?
I just had a question about, I was just kind of surprised at the budget for aquaculture supplies for culching, and I'm just wondering, because it's like, it says 6, then the actual expenditure was like 14,000, then it's 9,000 this coming year, and then a proposed maybe 11,000 the following year. And just as a grower, it seems like a lot of gear for propagating shellfish to like viable seed size. So I'm just curious if
We need
that's not-
I forget how many racks we have, but we need more racks, so that's gonna be a pretty hefty investment. Like if we got 100 more racks, it's gonna be $7,500, or,
yeah.
$7,500, so.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons. I forgot to print out the year-by-year comparison. What I've just been doing is kind of moving things around by the internal line item, keeping the budget level funded, but then
Okay.
last year I thought I would spend more on mulch.
Right. Yeah, I guess just because I know the initial investment for aquaculture gear is substantial.
Yeah.
Per rack and stuff, and then usually that sort of sustains
Yes.
itself for a long time.
Yeah.
So I just was kind of perplexed at the continual numbers for.
We're just
for gear.
building up our shop. Yep.
Okay.
We probably, I have it, I can pull it up in a second. I can tell you exactly what we're going to order if you want to know. Just give me a minute.
I
to
mean,
pull it
I
up.
don't think that's totally necessary.
Okay.
I'm just pointing it out. I was a little concerned about the amount of aquaculture supplies because it just seems to me like, it adds up to about 34,000 in aquaculture gear in those 3 years proposed, and probably we won't use that in 2021. I just kind of put that
So
up there.
the other thing is that we track it as a 180. We don't I do try and track it by line item, but it
Right.
doesn't mean that we really spent 34 grand. Some of that could have been for seed or for culch, because we can intermingle here.
Okay.
Because they really just track it by 180, not by B1, B2, B3.
Okay, so you're tracking it by
I could
B2.
certainly tell you exactly what we did spend, because that's how I do it, but
Sure, so actual expenditures in here are what you spent, right? But
it might
maybe
be.
not.
I'd have to look at it again. Sorry, I
Yeah,
should have printed
okay.
that out. But I know that this year we're buying a lot of racks. We need the small bags with the PVC closures. We need more of those. We only got, I think, 200, so we need at least 200 more. So we have some pretty big expenditures coming up. We're buying Chinese hats.
That was
So-
my other question, really, is like how much oyster seed is coming from hatchery because it's not genetically diverse, and we have such a abundantly producing harbor for native oyster set that is more
Yeah, that's-
diverse, hardier, and I So I was
Johnny
just
is
curious.
actually on that exact same wavelength. We invested, so we participate, we get free seed money from the county and the state to the tune of almost $6,000. So we'll always take that hatchery seed.
Can you use it for any species?
Yeah, but there's the only field plant is oysters. So we do buy that oysters because the other are, there's like 2 mil quahogs and 2 mil oysters, and we don't have an upweller, and we're not gonna, we don't have the infrastructure either to support that many oysters, so we're just investing it in it. I just put my order in for this year. I think it's 143,000 oysters we're getting with it, and then the rest is the donated hat seed, and then all the culching that we'll do and the spat collecting that we'll do. So we don't have any intention of spending seed money on oysters anymore, except for we'll take it from the state because it's free. But other than that, we're going to spend it on quahog seed.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wanted to point out the aquaculture thing and see where you guys were at with as far
Yeah.
as like continuous growth in gear and.
Yeah,
The necessity for
that'll as you say, that should level off.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Comments? Any from the audience?
The one other thing that I will say
okay.
about 179, B3 contract services, the additional $1,000 to hire a GPS consultant, that's just a one-time. Like, I want to do this project where we would create a map for public safety and education, and then, next year I won't be asking for the same amount. But I didn't put in that it was a one-time thing.
Where's that?
That's
B3.
on
Oh, B,
B3 under
that's the contract
179.
service. Okay,
Janet, I do have one more question.
all right, go ahead,
So,
Helen.
when is the Center for Coastal Studies survey of what's on the bottom?
They did that in November, but the weather hasn't been conducive, and we don't have the gear as a department, and we haven't been able to find a commercial fisherman to work with us to retrieve it, because you need some specific types of
Oh, yeah.
utensils, if you will. I mean, we need,
Claw.
Tongs.
yeah, like a claw, and you need a big rig. You need to be able to lift up. So there's only a few boats in the harbor that could do it, and we just haven't gone down that road yet with the Center for Coastal Studies.
But there's a follow-up question then. I did read this, I actually read it twice, but I didn't read it today. Is there any money in here for getting that done if you find some way to get it up before the harbor gets dredged? No, right?
No.
So,
Because I think this budget was submitted before the Center for Coastal Studies came through,
okay.
and they had a grant, so we didn't have to, but I don't know what their new grant is, so I should check in with them, and maybe, I'm sure I have figures on how much it costs. I want to say it's like $3,000
Oh,
a day. Yeah,
a day.
yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
So the grant that they were giving did not include removal of it, just included identifying it.
Yes, but then they came back and said, well, they did have some money.
Yeah.
So I'll check back in with them, and then I can let you know, too, if we think we should budget for it. Unfortunately, that's not propagation, so we can't take it from our revolving fund.
All right.
I'm just.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or
Not
comments?
gonna get a blood clot, are you?
I really hope not. I don't want to.
Rescue, right here.
Didn't bring the truck. Okay, let's not go there.
Courtney's
Okay.
loving this.
I might stand
Wait,
up with
now,
you. so
okay, so any questions from the audience? Or do you want to move on?
Sorry.
Okay, so no further questions. May I have a motion? Does anybody have the motions in front of them? Does somebody want to move to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget for the Shellfish Department in the amount of
Kathleen, you do it,
the
please.
total, $264,000? Do we add all these $384?
I don't have a motion.
As recommended by the town administrator?
Sounds good, Janet. Second?
All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Do you have to
Thank
do
you.
the propagation one, too? That's 180.
Oh, okay, so you have them separate. Oh, okay, good, I didn't read them both together. Okay, so now we're moving on to the, well, why were we just talking about propagation and seed if that wasn't included?
It was. They're both in
Oh.
there.
You want
This
them
is two
both?
motions.
Okay, you want separate articles?
Well, I don't know how you do
I don't
it.
know either. Okay, so move to approve fiscal year 2021 budget for the Shellfish Conservation and Propagation Department. Right?
Second.
Okay. In the amount of $6,000? No, 46.
yeah.
It is 6,000.
Yep.
Okay, $6,000. Kathleen seconded. All in favor?
Thank you very
Unanimous?
much.
Thank you. And next up, we have the fire department, right? Yes.
Hello, Chief.
For anyone at home who wants to look at any part of this budget, it is posted under the Selectmen's tab on the town's website, on the left-hand side, and you can see any of these budgets that we're talking about are all listed on the town's website.
Okay, great, good. Good evening. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. Rich Pauley, Fire Chief, Town of Wellfleet.
And would you like to begin with any specific comments, or?
Probably nothing that you haven't heard from me before. The budget that I proposed is slightly different than what the town administrator recommends. And the primary difference is in overtime. I think there's about a $40-something thousand difference there. I understand the desire and the need to try to maintain overtime, but we put a lot of time and effort into the number. My only response is that if that's the decision that the board makes, we will certainly endeavor to live within those means, but I'm doubtful we'll be able to, and we'll probably have to ask for a transfer in the April 2021 town meeting, which we've done in the past, and or past town meetings, and we've always had approval. So it's not something that I'm losing sleep over, but I just want to prepare the board that that may have to happen a year from this April. In the last 2 town meetings, we have not had to do that because we've been able to manage and work within the overtime budgeted amount. So that's just my comment with respect to the budget as it sits in front of the board. And again, we are down to 4 on-call members, and I anticipate that, well, I know that there'll be retirements in the next 2.5 years of at least 2 of them. We have no one coming in the door. I will be asking town meeting for 2 more full-time positions. That's an addendum to this budget. We need to get to a point where we have consistently 4 people scheduled per shift, 24 hours. And we need 5 more full-time people in the next 2.5 years, 5 new positions to be able to do that. And that's the bottom line. So I'm asking for 2 this year. In the upcoming budget, I would ask for another 2, and then I would anticipate with the retirement of, and the diminishing of the call force, that money that is already budgeted in the department budget will fill or will pay for that 5th position when the time comes as we go down the road.
This probably isn't the time, well, this is not the time to talk about it, but do you fire chiefs and other people from other towns ever get together and really talk about sharing? I know that's been talked about for the last 10 years, and I get that it's not practical in so many ways, but is there any future in that?
As I think I mentioned at the last year's budget hearing, I am all
Yeah.
for regionalization,
Yeah.
particularly on the Outer Cape, but I just don't see that there's the political willpower by the communities, by the residents. We're very parochial on Cape Cod and certainly New England. I think that Barnstable County is ripe for 1 county fire department. I truly feel that way, but I just don't see it happening, not in my career,
Okay.
no, or in the next
And you're
5 to
here
10
for a
years.
long time, right? Oh, no. Don't tell me. All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
Okay.
Helen?
Yeah, okay. So, public safety is really important. We actually do have regional help. Everything I've heard about it, and I even went to, like, the meeting in Truro with Harry Turkanian and stuff when that was being discussed. I think it's inefficient. And if you-
So I didn't want to
It-
open anything up. We're talking about the budget. I'm
Yes,
just
we
curious.
are.
this-
I'm
yeah,
addressing this.
Okay.
We have mutual aid, and that works very well. Mutual aid is excellent, and we give it to other people. I want to make a comment about the 2 departments, the police department and the public safety department, having a whole lot of people working for them, and I understand why, right? And then we have 2 departments that have a huge amount to do with environmental safety and health. One is the Health Conservation Department, and one is the Shellfish Department, which has to deal with 2 state agencies, the Public Health and the DMF. And they have almost no employees compared to you. So I just want to put this out there. You both need to have your departments running like Swiss watches. But every time this comes up, I think, like, you have so many people working for you, and they cost so much money, and in the case of the police department, I'll do the police department later. I'm just being a little hard here and saying, you know, and remember, I lived with somebody who was an EMT, called firefighter, for over 3 years, and was very aware of what the needs are. But I have to say, you guys have a lot of employees, and I always scratch my head about it, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not saying I don't think you should have them.
Kathleen?
Janet, yeah, the reality is that the fire department doesn't have enough employees. And are you optimistic that you ever will?
I am.
Because this has been,
This has been an ongoing issue since before I became fire chief. Chief Silverman had concerns.
It-
But and the townspeople have stepped up in the last 3 years. I know we've put it forward.
given what you need.
And they've given us what we've needed, and we're very grateful for that. But we've got a lot of time to make up for that, things weren't quite brought up to speed previously. And I'm not casting aspersions or laying blame, it's just the reality. So the reality is that over the next 2.5 years, we're gonna need 5 more people, and that will give us 4 people on each group. Now, bear in mind that 70% of the ambulance transports, again, take 3 hours from start to finish and require 3 people, depending upon the priority of the call. So that only leaves 1 person back, potentially, and maybe myself or the fire prevention officer, depending upon schedule and time off and whatever's going on. So even when we get to the 4 people on each group, from that perspective, I will feel more comfortable and have a better sense as to where we're at. So, in answer to your question, I guess, Ms. Bacon, is that yes, 5 more people will get us to the minimum that we need, and at some point, future fire chiefs, future boards of selectmen, future town administrators are going to have to deal with, whatever the future needs are.
And my next comment, Chief Polly, is you used an adjective with regard to regionalization, and your adjective was parochial. Mine would be territorial, but thank you.
Mike, you have a question or comment?
Just a question. 5 people on top of the staff that you have currently right now
That's correct.
is what you're seeking. And what's the total staff right now
So
for the audience?
presently, right now, we have, and I want to make sure I get this right, because we have had, a number of changes. So we have a total of 15 full-time people. That includes myself, Captain Capello Fire Prevention, and our administrative assistant, who's not on the full-time staff in terms of responding, but she's a call person. And then we have 12 firefighter, either paramedics or EMTs. So how it breaks down is, and you should have this in a narrative on the cost-benefit analysis, but I'll just, if I may, real quick. We have 4 groups. Group 1 has 2 full-time firefighter paramedics and 1 full-time firefighter EMT. Group 2 has 2 full-time paramedics and 1 full-time firefighter EMT. Everyone's a firefighter. Group 3 only has 2 firefighter paramedics, and Group 4 has 3 full-time firefighter paramedics. So with the 4-group system, which is the system that we run, and it's run by 90% of the fire departments across the country and all of the departments across Cape Cod, we need to have 4 full-time people on that group. That is the rotating group schedule. And then during the day, we would have the fire chief, the fire prevention officer to back up for the second call, and perhaps a daytime person. Just gives us a little bit of a cushion. So I hope I answered your question.
So a total of 20 would do.
Total of, which said, on the, what I call on the floor, uniform
Yeah.
personnel. That would be a total of 20, yes.
But this actually isn't about new hires, right? So I shouldn't
No.
have even asked that question, really.
No. But it's a
Overtime.
good question. They're all
Well,
valid
one thing I
questions.
would
Yeah.
probably say, the town hired 1 additional recently, right?
We hired 2 additional this past September, which have been partially funded with that SAFER grant, that 3-year grant.
So did overtime go down as a result of hiring those 2 people?
No, overtime typically won't go down until we're at a full staff complement.
Right.
See, in order to maintain our ambulance license, we have to have a minimum of 3 people available, whether they're full-time or call force, some combination thereof. So when we get to the point in time where we have a full complement of 4 people on each group, then we can look at when someone is out sick or vacation in a slow period of the year, slower season, if you will, that, not fill a shift, which is, we run 12-hour shifts, or not full a 24-hour tour. But I'm not in a position to be able to do that, because by doing so would jeopardize our ability to respond on the ambulance and also jeopardize our ambulance license until we're at a full complement of those 20.
Sure, I guess I'm just making the link between being understaffed and the amount of money that we're paying in overtime.
Yeah,
and how-
there is a link, Mr. DeVasto. There is certainly a link there once
But we
we're at
haven't reached the critical point. I got you.
Right.
Okay.
But I will say that, in the last, with the addition of the two people, that we have had a little flexibility where, I haven't had to order someone in. I can just say, okay, so-and-so's taking half the shift off, family emergency. Do you want to fill it? And I'll say, no, let's not fill it, because it's, we're in January and we're just going to kind of roll the dice and see where we go. And we don't do that a lot, but it happens.
But you do have on-call as well, like people who are not on shift, but people on call that aren't in the department at the time in the actual building.
That's correct. We're down to 4. We had 16 when I first started.
Okay.
We were authorized for 16, but we're down to 4. And like I said, I expect a couple of, to plan for 2 retirements out of the call force in the next 2.5 years. And I can't go into it because it's personnel issues, but I can tell you
Sure.
that
Yeah.
that is.
On-call people is down.
That on-call people is non-existent. Is
Okay.
where
And
we're
that's
at.
really what's changed in the last 20 years or so.
Absolutely.
Yes, Helen?
So, at no point, however, will overtime cost anywhere near as much as salaries for full-time people and all their compensations, their health benefits.
Right.
And I really like mutual aid, and I also like the fact, and I was there during your interviews when you were hired, you're a paramedic. And I would think that if it was a matter of it being one short in the middle of the night, they would call you if there was some kind of really dire situation, and you would show up because you were the chief and also because you're that kind of guy, as far as I can make out. But all the years I've looked at these budgets and looked at what overtime is, and all the years I've looked at the salaries, which come like a death knell every year. They're big, people deserve to be paid well, I get that. And then I look at what you don't see in a salary line item, which is the health benefits and the pensions, which people need to have. If they want to work here, they should be getting that. I always think it's worth paying for more overtime. That's where I am with it. Sorry.
If I may, I need to make one correction. I'm not a paramedic. I'm an EMT.
Oh.
And I've always been an EMT. But
Oh, you said you liked being in a truck at the interview.
Yes.
Which means that you knew how to do that. Forgive me, I got
no,
that wrong.
that's fine.
Not the first time.
And not to continue with this, but I think that maybe I'm not clarifying this. Ms. Wilson, you make a very good point about the cost of overtime and the cost of doing business. However, we're at a point where we don't have enough people. And the lack of people, when we have a couple that are on vacation or someone's out sick for the long term or is injured, there's not enough people. For the first time in my career, this summer, I had to put a policy in because we couldn't get people back on overtime because they were too exhausted from working. They were working, multiple shifts, where I had to put a policy in place to compel people, to order people to stay at work. And I've never had to do that in my career. Brewster Fire's been doing it for the last 2 years in the summertime. And it does not bode well for employee relations. It doesn't bode well for quality of service. But if you have to order someone to stay to work, then that tells a story. And that's what we have had to put in place in this last year. Fire service is very, very labor intensive. It takes people. And, we could throw $1 million at the problem in terms of overtime, and it's not going to solve the problem if you don't have enough people. And it's just not Wellfleet. It's Truro, it's Eastham, it's Orleans. Provincetown is in the middle of a big change. If you've been watching the paper or seeing what's coming out in the media, I'm not saying it's going to happen July 1, but I know there's a big, big sea change coming to Provincetown in the next 2 to 3 years about how that department's going to be set up. I can only tell you what my professional opinion is and what my experiences are.
Okay, so any questions from the audience? So may I have a motion? And actually, I want to ask Mr. Hort, so with the Shellfish Department, I read out the town administrator's budget, because I always think that's right, rather than the department's budget, and they are two different numbers. Should I redo I think I do the TA budget, right?
You
Or-
do the TA budget if you agree with my recommendation. Now, as the chief said when he sat down, he doesn't necessarily agree with what I said with overtime. So, I'm looking at it and saying, okay, overtime is going up too high. I really can't recommend increasing it that much. I'm going to recommend a lower amount. It's really your call if you agree with what the chief has said, and it's not a him versus me
Right,
type thing.
right,
It's just
yeah.
two different opinions here. But you can make a recommendation to recommend either the chief's budget at 1,808,000, or you can recommend the town administrator's budget at 1,760,000. It's just a difference of how the two of us look at it. And I don't think you're gonna get either of us upset by recommending either one.
If I may, Madam Chair, I will go with either budget under just the caveat again that we may have to come back at April town meeting of next year and supplement that line item. And that's something that's been done in the past, so it's
Okay.
It's fine.
okay. You'll still come to my house when I need you.
absolutely.
Okay. What? I know, all right. As a citizen. Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion?
I'm going to move to recommend the chief's budget at $1,808,000 for fiscal year 2021.
Ms. Bacon, it's 1,808, it's
Yeah.
$1,813.
Oh, $13, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So just to point out to all the other departments that are here, this is really good for us to read everything that you've written, and I'm sure we do, and there's great understanding, and
Well,
Lots of
if I may, real
complexity.
quick, this format is one that the town administrator set forth his first year, and I like it, because I think it gives a lot of information for
Yeah.
the board members and the FinCom and anyone else, so. It took a year to get used to it, but I like it.
that's good. It's very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we
You don't have
have,
to kiss up just because you got your budget passed, so.
Yeah, kiss up.
and now we have the chief of police,
Fit in the chair.
Not acting?
not acting as
When-
far as I care. I'm
When-
kidding. All right.
No, what do we, seriously, when do you start being chief?
February 21st.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
2
you.
more weeks.
Yeah, okay.
But,
End of February 20th
okay.
is his official retirement date.
Okay, so are there any questions or comments on the police budget?
If I could, real quick, Madam Chair.
Yes, you may,
just,
yes, I'm sorry, do explain something if you
well,
want.
Just a quick introduction on, I'll start with police budget, 210. Just a few observations. This is my first year presenting the budget. I've worked with the retired chief in past years, preparation, implementation of the budget. Just a few things globally that I see in the budget, maybe as a new set of eyes. As the fire chief had mentioned, overtime, which, mine is a small, modest increase. In my 10 years between lieutenant and now in the chief's position, I think we have been fully staffed maybe a year total, and that may be generous. Retention has been tough, retirements happen, and typically in our line of work, once an opening or a vacancy occurs, I'm about a year, 12 to 18 months without that person available on the road to assist. So when you continue to have turnover this year, next Tuesday, I'll be bringing a new candidate forward due to a resignation of a 16-year officer who left the state. He moved his family out of state. So this will be our third hire since July 1, and it comes at an expense both for the department, as the chief said. We're sworn for 14, including me, currently. I have no lieutenant. I'm down 2 people, and it's hard. You know, we're staffing 24/7. Where just this past holidays, I ran 1 officer shifts that were involving mental health issues, mental health calls. If we section somebody, the officer is supposed to go to the hospital with the ambulance, which means there's nobody left in town. As long as I've been here for 25 years, 1 officer shifts has always been a concern. I'm sure every chief that's come forward to you, but the reality is, again, money. So typically from November to March, we run a 1 officer shift certain days of the week to the tune of about 100 shifts per year, that there's 1 police officer in town on duty at one time. So that's just a reality of, I know it may seem high to have 14 officers in a small town, but with the summer population, with the shoulder seasons, with a lot of the complex issues that we're dealing with today that, I never dealt with when I came on the job. It's completely changing. Another increase you'll see this year in the specials line is for increasing the animal control, which, again, 25 years ago, it was, some volunteers in town going around a station wagon, taking the dog, throwing it in the back, bringing it to Nauset Kennel. And now we have state regulations, state reports, quarantines, barn inspections. It goes on and on and on. And the level of certification and training needed by that person is intense and a lot. And like anything else, it's an investment. And one of my reserve officers who has been helping out for years is just overwhelmed. There's not enough, first of all, there's not enough money in the budget, and there's not enough time for him to get some of the stuff done, and there's a lot of other things he'd like to tackle. And I know there's been issues with dog-related issues and beaches and things that we need to work better on. In part of some conversation with Eastham, they're willing to look at a shared animal control position. I've met with their chief, myself and Dan have met with the town administrator. And it's, again, we look at regionalization, I wouldn't exactly call that, but it's a shared position where we can both utilize somebody with more hours and share the cost, basically. I think that's a win-win for both communities. They are in the same position with us that we don't have a full-time animal control person, so it gets passed on to patrol, it gets passed on, and the issues, that Des cannot handle right now, they continue to wait. Marijuana, we're now coming up to our 4th year of it being legalized, and what the impact will be, I don't know. There's nothing in my budget for any increases or anything, but the impact is still unknown. Again, we're coming into the 4th year. And it's just something where you may see some increase in training, and it's a huge thing I believe in. I really think that if we keep training, it's obviously helps with prevention. It helps, with the officers to be properly trained. Again, with mental health, half of our staff is trained in community crisis intervention. I'd like to get the other half of the staff trained in that, and that's a week-long training that I have to pull an officer off the road, opens up more one-man shifts, so it's a cascading effect at times. Just real quick, one of my earlier jobs when Chief Rosenthal hired me was grant writing, and it's something I still continue to look for. I know in the past budget year, I was able to fund $20,000 in car computers with a federal grant. This year, approximately about $18,000 in state and federal money for traffic grants. And I'm currently looking at a USDA grant that could pay up to 15% of our cruiser. So wherever I can find money to try to help offset some of these costs, we'll be looking at it, and we'll continue to look at it. So, sorry.
Good, thank you. Any questions, comments from the board? Kathleen had her hand up.
Officer Keogh's not on here. He's left. He was doing our animal control.
He did leave at the beginning of the summer. He has come back the beginning of December to help me with some barn inspections a few days a week.
So you still have him in the animal control?
Yeah, just, right now, it's just a few days a week because there's nothing that was budgeted, so it's, what I did this
Because I
year.
don't see it here.
Yeah, I mean, what I did this year, the current budget year we're in, is I'll just hire less summer staff. I have to balance it somewhere, so that's why you see the increase for FY '21 with additional money in the specials line to increase the hours, and then with Eastham helping with some money also, we can make that, you know, a position, a shared position between the two towns.
That's good.
And, how do you like the job so far?
Different. Good, though, a lot of support. It's a lot of support from your chiefs and from you and the town, so I appreciate it.
Yes, Helen?
So Officer Keogh is one of my favorite officers of all time, and he has, since he was here before, has gotten more certification as an animal control officer. And I know because he inspects my chickens. So why is it that we're not looking to share someone with Truro, which would make more sense in terms of animals?
Truro, years back, we had a shared position with Truro, and
Yes.
the arrangement, which I was not a part of, did not work for various reasons. They are currently using a retired Provincetown officer to fill the role, and they don't seem to see the need for any shared position at the moment. Eastham approached us. It happened to be a conversation about animal control issues that morphed into, how about we share the costs for a person? So that's.
Okay, so sharing the costs is good and I'm not quite clear from what you said. Are you going to continue to have Officer Keogh in the force? Because I really hope so, personally.
That would be, yes, that would be the plan.
That would be good. And of course, Eastham is much bigger in terms of land mass. And not as much animal management is shared with the park as it is with Truro and Provincetown. And, you know, they have a zoologist and they do quite a lot with animals, the park. So I'm really worried that we won't get what we need because in my mind, this is very important. And not just the inspections, which make sure that animals are not being mistreated, but all the wild animals and all the interactions with wild animals are also under the jurisdiction of that officer. Anyway, I'm really glad you've got a real one now, as opposed to just an animal-smart, good-natured, commanded to do his job or her job person in the force who isn't certified.
And it is, the state is taking this very seriously now.
Yes.
They
Yeah,
really,
newsletter.
they've, in Dez's absence, we called a few times, and they wouldn't even really talk to us. They wanted to talk to the animal control certified officer. So, you know, it's, like I said, everything else, the complexity just keeps layering one on top of the other, so.
But what is his salary going to be?
That will be that's what we're in the midst now of trying to determine. Ours, we'll come up with an MOU with Eastham, because I think both towns are concerned about, are we going to get our fair share? And like anything else, this could be a one-year trial, and I think that if it works, it works, and if we find that we'll be better off with just having the position under us full-time, we can re-examine that come next year. But I think it's worth a try, especially for the cost savings.
And are these animal inspections, are they for safety or health reasons? I'm assuming both, but what would you say the majority, is there a lot of safety
It's for the
calls
safety and health of the animals,
of
basically.
the animal?
and,
Okay, none of the humans are getting out? and
No,
causing
just
trouble.
dog attacks or dog bites, things to that nature that he
Yeah.
investigates and quarantines, but the
Okay.
inspections themselves are for the safety and well-being of the animals. They are state mandated, and they did have to be done by the end of the year, so, you know, I'm glad that he came back and helped. That
Yeah,
was
that's
That was
great.
huge.
All right, any other questions? May I have a motion? Anybody looking at the motions? I shall make it since
I can never find the
I know.
amount.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget for the police department of $1,605,028, $1,605,028 Yeah,
I got you.
as recommended by the town administrator
Second.
and the department head. All in favor? Great, thank you.
And just the second budget is Budget 215, Communications. Very basic, I mean,
Where is that one?
It's in your binder, it's not. in-
Okay,
Oh.
all right, yeah.
the increases this year, again, you'll probably keep hearing me say, I'm really big on education and training. We went from $100 in FY '20 to $1,500, just, again, so I can get the dispatch some additional training. Mental health is really a
Big,
hot item
yeah.
at the moment, so outside of that, it's just all contractual.
Okay, so what's the amount?
400,000.
6,667.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
can do that.
406, okay, go
If I'm
ahead,
allowed to
Kathleen.
make the motion, or, I'm just kidding.
No.
I move to approve the communication dispatchers budget for fiscal year 2021 for $406,667.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
All right, thank you for your support.
You're very welcome. Okay, are we up to DPW?
Yep.
We are up to DPW. What good representation you have here tonight. Yeah,
Dan, what is the DPW under in here?
Hi, Jean.
where is it? Oh, here it is right here.
Oh, yeah, here it is. It's a,
Evening.
Good evening.
So
So,
introduce yourself, please.
this is Gene Leidenfrost, my administrative assistant, and I'm Mark Vincent, DPW Director, Town of Wellfleet. And I believe you have five budgets,
Yeah,
yeah.
417.
beginning at, or six budgets, I'm sorry. So we can begin, if we want to proceed individually, with 417 facilities. I'd like to say about all of these budgets as a whole, every year it gets a little tougher to attempt to level fund, at least level fund these budgets, given the demands on the department. In each phase of the department, the past 5 years that have gone by, the demands have increased every year. But from a budget perspective, we've tried to keep things on an even keel. We have a staff of 15 right now. I hate to be the bearer of even more bad news, but I can see in the future here where I'm going to have to attempt to possibly look for at least one other personnel, but that's not on the agenda for this year at least, but I thought I'd just throw that out there for now, so it's on the back of everybody's mind. So in regards to 417 facilities, this is the budget that we use to pay utilities and maintain all of the 6 year-round town buildings, all the beach facilities and recreational facilities. It is level funded, the same level it was last year. Some of the line items have been adjusted to go with averages and trends, but we were able to level fund it at $340,950. I will say, over the past 2 years, and this was completed last year, we took advantage of the Green Communities Act, and in total, we got over just about $200,000 from Green Communities, and we're able to convert the DPW building, the town hall, and over from fuel oil over to propane, where it's more efficient.
Yeah.
So that brought our costs down a little bit. So the only building right now that's left on fuel oil is the town hall. So we're burning, the library is the only building that's left on fuel oil right now. So we're burning more efficient efficiently.
So do we need to approve these individually?
No, I think we can do them all, you can explain everything, and then we could
All of them.
list them or name them, unless you want us to do it individually, but I don't think we need to.
I think historically, we've
We'll,
done,
we'll do them individually, but all at once individually. That was my idea.
Yeah, you could
Yeah.
make
Like we'll
one
say-
motion to present to approve
All the
Department
facilities, the
417 for this
operations.
amount
Yeah.
and Department 420
Oh,
for this amount.
Okay.
okay, so there's no questions on 417?
I have a quick question.
Yeah,
I'm just curious about the contracted services, the jump from 95,000 to 148 in the actual expense. I'm just kind of curious what
So
the,
that, the actual cost of that 148, $574, that was,
Porta potties?
that was for the
Boilers,
boilers at the
fire department.
fire department.
Okay.
We replaced the boilers there, and that was put,
one-time cost,
Yes,
basically. I was
right,
just
yep.
curious what that entailed, because
Yeah.
it's like about a 50%.
yeah, and that was
Increase from
transferred back at
Sure.
that town meeting, yeah.
Okay, that was the only question I had.
Okay.
I had a couple.
Yes, Helen?
So, the fuel tank down at the marina is paying for, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that was my only stupid question for you. My second question wants to highlight the fact that we haven't had any snow this year. So, as we all know, we all have to keep the sum that it might be. You can't
Right.
make it less. It's that strange state
Well, as soon as you
requirement.
say that, it's going to start
It's
snowing.
snowing tonight, 10 o'clock, but go ahead.
I am not superstitious like that, but never mind.
It's
But the
forecast,
point
but
is,
yeah.
this amount might be a whole lot less if we don't have any major snow, because by this time last year, we'd already had some pretty major snow.
So have you moved ahead to the snow and ice budget?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
out of
hold
order.
on.
We're out of order.
Well, it was my
Out of order.
question. Okay, so I did that. So, do
So-
you want to wait to answer me until we get to that
Well, we
place?
know that if he doesn't use up that line item in the budget, it's just reserved.
Yeah.
But my question was going to be, do you remember what it was last year by this time, roughly?
What the snow budget was?
What had it been spent,
In the
roughly?
snow by this time last year?
Or just by the end of the season?
Uh,
It's so nice to have comparisons.
You know,
Yeah, I have
we
all
can
those
look that up for
Yeah,
you, but it's
yeah.
not something we would probably have right here. But we can look it
Oh,
up through the
actually-
accounting system of seeing.
Yeah.
Should be in here, the actual
I
expenditure.
do have that figure.
Well, aren't you the
Sorry, I'm not only
It's
out of,
actually in your notebook, Helen.
Last
Where?
year, we spent $107,883. In FY 2018, we spent $110,165. In 2017, it was $134,688. I don't know if you have that in your packet, that's just in my
What she
back.
had asked, though, was, as of today, are we ahead or behind of where we spent, through
Snow.
January 7th last year?
I can't
okay, thank
can't
you.
bring that right in
I
front of me right now.
apologize for taking this out of
Okay.
order. I thought we could just do it all at will, sorry.
All right, so we've done facilities and
On to 420.
operations, excuse me? Yeah.
Operating? Okay, 420 is the operating budget. This is the general budget that we use to mainly maintain vehicles and equipment for the DPW, transfer station, fire department, and there's some other lines regarding things like uniforms and those types of things. This is the budget that we use to maintain the cemetery with, pays for gasoline, other supplies like that, but mainly there are four main line items in this budget that are used solely for vehicle and equipment maintenance. And we were able to also level fund that at the same level as last year, at $149,550.
Any questions, comments? Okay, we'll move on to the highways.
Highways budget 422. This is the budget that is used for general road maintenance, drainage maintenance, infrastructure maintenance, whether it be line striping, things to do with roadside mowing, brushing. There is a $50,000 Chapter 90 supplement that is, probably a token supplement isn't the right term, but it was a few years ago that it was decided to put at least something towards the Chapter 90 supplement money towards that, because the town was solely using Chapter 90 funding before this amount was brought forward. So that's also in this budget. And that, again, was also level funded at $92,900.
And here we are, Helen, 423, snow and ice.
Snow and ice. Again, level funded. This is probably the only budget, Dan can correct me if I'm wrong, that we are legally allowed to deficit spend depending on the type of winter that we have. Every 5 years, 4 or 5 years, I will take a look at this and do a 5-year or 4 or 5 year average on it and readjust the numbers. I haven't done that for a couple years, but this is where we're at right now. It seems to be a pretty good figure at 128, 180. So that is level funded from last year.
Janet? Is that required by the state, that averaging cycle?
No.
That's just the department, you
Yeah.
decide to do it, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And street lights?
424 streetlights.
I just had one question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael has a.
Just about the salt and ice, do we always use salt in, or do we
use
use
them-
sand sometimes, just sand, or is there always a salt mix in it?
Right now, we use a mixture of 3 to 1.
Sand to salt?
Yeah.
And that's always every time, there's never just sand?
No, there's never just sand. We do, depending on the type of storm, we may have to cut that to 50-50 type of mixture, depending on the type of storm, but we, every time we do that, we at least use a portion of sand.
So 3 to 1's our ratio, just, I worry about the salt runoff sometimes.
We have used 4 to 1 on occasion.
Yeah,
There's a lot of towns that are going over to all salt, at least for my time right now. I'm not a believer in that, because I always believe that you need some type of aggregate on the road as opposed to salt. You
Yeah.
use salt, it melts, it refreezes, and you're in trouble again. But
yeah.
it's a different school of knowledge.
Yeah, I only ask because I spent a lot of time in Vermont, and there's a lot of towns that just use sand, you know?
Yeah.
They don't use any salt, and they don't do a clear road policy because it's just too expensive up there. So I was just curious if we ever just use sand on
We
the
can
roads,
use a
but-
different blend on one side of the town as opposed to the ocean side, as opposed to we do on this
Mm-hmm.
side. There's 2 weather systems. There's at least 3 different weather systems in this town.
Yeah, there are, aren't there?
So-
So I thought towns, especially like on coastal towns, were getting, not, I know that we have always used salt, but haven't we cut down on it from, say, 10, 20 years ago, 20 years ago?
Cut down on the salt?
Yeah,
Not necessarily.
okay, I
No.
didn't know that. I thought towns had, okay.
Some towns have.
A lot of towns are going
I
to
know we
all
try to
salt.
minimize it for many, many reasons, but I have to say, it seems like whatever, I know it's safety and all, that it seems like you're increasing what you do, and I suppose that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I was like, a little danger there, be more careful. Yes, Helen?
What's more expensive now, sand or salt?
We're fortunate enough, the town is fortunate enough to have its own borrow pit for sand.
Yes.
So we will screen it on site up at the transfer station. We rent a screener and get it at I wouldn't say de minimis, but a very low cost as compared to many other towns that have to purchase it. So we have that advantage. The cost of salt is around $58 a ton now, so that's been fairly stable over the last 3 or 4 years, hasn't it, Jean?
So my point being that because it's much better environmentally, and we definitely have people whose wells have been impacted by salt, whether they put it on their driveways or whether they're next to a state road like I am. Because the state, unfortunately, and we have the state's ways going right through the town, and on little side roads like Money Hill Road where I live, they're not using much sand at all because it's expensive, maybe, or for whatever reason, and that really concerns me.
Yeah, they have a little bit different response. I wouldn't say, their task is to clear a state road, which involves a lot more traffic, and a traffic that's going faster than, say, well, maybe not Ocean View Drive, but at least Main Street. So they have a different responsibility than we are, than we do. So there's different schools, different ways of thinking about the whole task, but I know the state for a fact just uses about all salt right now, and it's
Yeah.
treated salt,
Yeah.
so. But I know what the possibility are with, wells that are near that type of environment.
And everything else.
And I
everything
know
else.
this conversation comes up every year, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it does.
yeah. Okay, and then moving on to street lighting.
Streetlights, you may remember 3 years ago, of our 234 streetlights, we were, through a grant, were able to change those over to LED lights, so that effectively cut this budget in half, but it is level funded from last
Great.
year.
Great, so it worked. LED
Worked.
lights worked then, that's
Yep.
great.
Cut the budget in half.
It's such an extreme amount of usage.
Janet? So, a few years ago, with the permission of the other person who lives on Money Hill Road, I got the street light on the state road I live on removed, because I like to sleep in the dark, and I believe in saving energy. And it would be interesting to have the DPW look at places where we might not need a street light, and not have it, because there is such a thing as light pollution, and there's maintenance, and there's just a little bit more, to spend on it every year. And it's just a thought.
Yeah, no, we're reactive to people that call up and either want a light added or a light taken away. But we do listen to them and react to that.
I feel that they're a hazard driving, because they take your focus away from where your headlights are going. But anyway, we digress, I'm sorry.
We do, you do, yeah. Okay, moving on to transfer station.
Transfer station, this is where things get a little bit more
Always.
complicated. I would like to say that we could level fund this budget too, but the markets for recycling and solid waste, especially right now, are becoming rather unpredictable. So unfortunately, because of our destination and our contract with New Bedford Waste right now, we're looking at an increase of around $33 a ton for solid waste to dispose of it. And that converts into an increase of $29,000, at least in this budget right now, over the course of this fiscal year that I'm recommending and have recommended. Dan and I have discussed this also. The cost of recycling, at least in this budget, is not increasing. So that's sort of good news, at least for now, but that could change tomorrow. But for this budget here, I can't ignore an increase of $33 a ton. And that begins actually this month.
This month, yeah.
So it's pretty volatile.
Well, the transfer station does an incredible job, and I
do.
wish more people would recycle and use less waste. And I know that there's so many small problems, literally small problems with recycling, where you throw the wrong thing in and it messes everything up. And I know it's really a hard job, but I think they do a phenomenal job
do.
up there. I enjoy going. One thing before Kathleen goes, I know last year on Amnesty Day, you had a huge amount of people coming to throw things away at Amnesty Day. And there are some recommendations on how to control that better, and maybe people from out of town were using Wellfleet cars or something like that. Do you feel, have you made any adjustments for that, or any recommendations for that, or?
I'm fortunate enough to have a terrific staff up that
You
transfer.
do,
station.
but they were
Town
overwhelmed, as
is-
you
is-
know.
Is fortunate to have,
Yeah.
as well as all the other employees that work.
Yes,
in
we
our
do have a
department.
great
They're
town, don't
great
we?
staff.
Yeah.
They have got it down to a science. And they come to me and they actually tell me where the deficiencies are, we should do
Yeah.
this, and I say, knock yourself out. And they've fine-tuned Amnesty Day.
Good,
So to the point
Good.
where they know who's who.
okay, good,
So it's
Good.
really come a long way, and I give them a lot of credit.
yeah, yeah. No, they're a
Yeah.
great crew up there. What else I want to say about transfer? Okay. Mike, or
One
Kathleen,
comment
who
about-
had it up? Okay.
Amnesty Day, they do a great job there during Amnesty Day. The one thing that I miss is, during Amnesty Day in the past, and I know it can't go back to the way it used to be, where there was just giant piles of debris that people could pick through before they got all smashed, but a lot of stuff was reused and taken out of the trash system during that time.
Yeah,
And if
good
there's
point.
any way that we can take some of the stuff that, because I go and I sit there for a while, and I hang out at the dump. It's one of my favorite spots
I
in town.
know, isn't it great?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time there, and on Amnesty Day I do. And if there was some way that people could temporarily put wooden furniture that they're bringing to the side of a bin rather than throwing it into the construction debris, could save the town money on that solid construction debris waste, and maybe get some stuff from being thrown away that could be reused by townspeople, because, as we know.
Are you
there-
speaking of Amnesty Day?
Amnesty Day particularly, but maybe, at all times, having a section of stuff, wooden furniture, that could just be picked up by the front end loader once a week and thrown into the bin, still paid for, but even on Amnesty Day especially, it's a lot of stuff that's good stuff that winds up, people don't want it, they just want to clear out their basement. There's also people there to scavenge too, so you see a lot of people moving from one truck into another truck and taking that home, or what do you got here? And if there's some way that we can kind of reduce the amount of stuff that winds up in the trash that's reusable and save the town some money on Amnesty Day, I think it would be to the benefit of the community.
No particular thoughts against that, other than it's pretty chaotic on Amnesty
I
Day.
totally get
Yeah.
that.
There's a priority of control
I-
and
yeah.
safety up there at the
I
same
totally
time.
understand that. I
But I
just,
understand your point.
yeah.
Kathleen?
Yep, Mark, I want to go back to the $33 increase. I think with what we heard at that meeting, Upper Cape, that's only going to get more. So I know you're aware of that. I think this year you're feeling the pinch there, but I think going forward in the future, it's going to get even more.
Yeah. If you reflect back, I've been with the town now going on 22 years. And when I started here, we were taking almost 4,000, the town of Wellfleet was taking almost 4,000 tons of trash, CMAS. Last year, we took 851 tons. So the community, and for a lot of other reasons, pay as you throw, we lost a lot of commercial people coming because they wanted to go directly
Right.
deal with their own vendor. So at least I'm not taking this $93 a ton and times 4,000.
Right.
That's one way to look at it. So we've come a long way. And that's thanks to, people at Wellfleet and recycling too, because we're disposing of that amount of refuse, but we're recycling more than we're disposing now.
Right, you have to adapt.
Tonnage, yeah. So it's good news.
Any other questions? So I just want to say that last week or so, someone from Old Wharf Road, this is kind of one of the joys you get of being a select person, they just came up to me and said, by the way, the DPW does a great job grading and cleaning Old Wharf Road.
But what?
No, well, I am gonna, there is a but I'm not gonna tell you. And they also wouldn't mind it if you paved it more. And I said, well, you've really gotta talk to everybody else on Old Wharf Road, because you know darn well, a lot of people are gonna say, I don't want it paved. But the compliment was that they really, you do a great
great.
job of
Great to hear.
grading. And that's something, I just don't see many people stopping you guys on the street saying, hey, great job. So, but you do a great
Appreciate
job.
that.
And as Mike said, the transfer station is like the best social place to get gossip and talk to everybody, and, yeah, it's good.
We can have a dump dance. Like
You know,
Used to be one.
there used to be
Truro,
one.
in Truro, we
there
never
is.
had that. We just did.
Yeah, really, can we move the budget?
Yes.
Yes.
We may move the
While you,
budget. Do you
wax
want to
poetic
do
about
all
the
those separately? You want to make a motion?
Thought we were gonna do them all.
Well, you're going to do them all, but you still have to list each one of them. We're going to do
Okay.
them all at once.
Or you can say
Can
to
we?
recommend the Department of
Total.
Public Works budget in the amount of $2,161,830 as presented, which would be the total of all the departments you just looked at.
Where is that figure?
2,161,000.
$2,161,830.
Okay. All right. I move the Department of Public Works budget for fiscal year 2021 for the amount of $2,161,830.
Second.
All in favor? And again, thank you.
Can I just
Yes,
do
you
one
may.
thing? I don't know if anybody's met, I'm new Assistant Director, Jay Norton.
And
I
We
apologize,
have-
Jay.
We have, yep.
So, okay.
But yeah, thank you guys for coming
Thank you.
tonight. Thank you. Chris, are you here for a budget? No. Okay. You're not like with the school budget tonight or anything? An announcement? Is it, I mean, you know, you could have like 1 minute if nobody minds. Does anybody mind if he makes a public
mind.
comment? Okay, good.
I just, the high school remodel project has come to kind of a point here, kind of a critical point. Now, I just want to make sure people were aware of it. We have just submitted the plans to the state and waiting for their okay. And with that okay would be their commitment to contribute or submit funds for the project, so we would offset our costs involved with that. The other point is that any information, you know, if you would like to see what it looks like, you can go to the Nauset High School website, click on the building committee link there, and it will take you right to the building committee, and there is the plan, the proposed plan of the new high school as it would be remodeled. Looks a lot like the old, but it would all be all be totally refurbished. And, but there's all the minutes, all the meeting notes. You can get in as deep as you'd like to get. It's very transparent. So I just wanted to remind people of that, and it is coming up. We will be holding town forums so we can let the citizens come and take a look at and ask questions and how we got here. This is the culmination of probably a year and a half of work.
Yeah.
So,
Well, good, thank you. Thank you for all the work. That's got to be hard. And as I was about to wrap things up, I'm looking for our town fees to review. I stuck them in the back, here we go. So
just
anybody
wanna-
have any comments on?
Chair Reinhardt, I just want to make a note. In order to make any actual changes, we need to list it as a public hearing. So tonight, you can only discuss them. If you
Okay.
have any changes you actually want to make, I can note that, and then we'll put this as a public hearing on a future agenda, and you can vote to make those proposed changes.
Okay. So does anybody have any comments on the town
Yeah.
property fees, on the changes?
Yeah.
Okay,
So, first comment is obvious in the documentation that a lot of these fees haven't been changed since 2016. What I was missing here were comments from the departments. In other
well,
words,
so,
that really, that stopped me dead. In other words, I would have liked to know, to be able to, I'm not saying department heads should have shown up for this, but I would have liked at least a memorandum with some assessment of their feelings about these fees being adequate. In other words, do they think they should be more because, yes?
I was
Ms.
just gonna
Butler?
suggest then, if you want to hear from department heads, the reason this was put on this agenda is because you have a policy that states, we'll review all municipal fees on an annual basis. That's really the only line. So we wanted to get this on the agenda because we've kind of been discussing it, and now we have people applying for things and fees are being used as they are. So if we're gonna address anything in the future that has a fee and you want to update it, we want to make sure everything is consistent. So if you want to hear from department heads, then what Jean Mack and I can do is just list this as a public hearing, and by the time we do that, I'll gather information from the department heads.
Yeah.
I do know that Shellfish decided not to change any fees or
Right.
anything, so
That
we,
was the only
changed.
recommendation.
there was no recommendation, so that's why
Yeah.
that one wasn't included.
It's a little more complicated than that.
Okay, well, that's the email I have from Nancy.
Yes.
So if you want, we can just take no action on, I mean, you're welcome to look at them and make your own opinions for tonight, but if you want feedback from department heads and committees, then I can seek that out before we post this as a public hearing for a future meeting.
So when I looked at this, I assumed that the department heads were okay with this and hadn't decided, so,
No, these were just taken right off the website.
okay, so the department heads haven't been consulted or haven't been asked to review them.
No, I mean,
Okay, well, then that would
The
be
current
good.
town fees.
that's exactly what's on the website.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, please ask them all to review their fees and come and present them to us, whether it's individually or just on paper.
So we will ask them individually, if you see anything
I see
in
something
here
like
right
that.
now
Yeah.
that you would like, specifically
Increased.
to mention to somebody, the select board would really like a recommendation from your department on something, please let us know, so.
Okay,
Yeah, I do. Very
okay, Mike had his hand up first. Did you have your hand up?
So, this has been something that's bothered me for a while, actually. I just don't understand the logic behind it, and maybe they can explain it to me. But the resident vehicle dump sticker, first vehicle $25, second vehicle $10, third vehicle $35, more than the first two. If you have a household that has 3 vehicles that go to the dump, you're still taking the same amount of trash to the dump from that household, whether you use 1, 2, first or second or third vehicle. I know not everybody has 3 vehicles, but I know a lot of people who
Yeah.
have 4, whatever, in their
Well-
families, And so I just have never been able to make sense why the second dump sticker's
Okay.
10 and the third one is 35, the price of the first 2 combined, but you're still in the same household, same address, same
Well,
registration.
they can,
So,
too late to talk to, do you have it? Yeah, you are here.
Determined by the Board of Health.
right, yeah.
Okay.
The train of thought was that to prevent multi-use within one house, in other words, if you could get a third sticker for 10 or even a third sticker for 5, it would be promoting
More use.
multi-use from one household, I guess I could say.
Yeah.
In other words, I could
Yeah.
come to a friend and say, hey, let me get a dump sticker for $10 using your address.
Right.
But you need to have your vehicle registered at that address to get the dump sticker there.
There was, yeah, you're correct. I can't really recall what the total train of thought was, something in that vein. I'll check with Julie on that.
We'll ask them to look at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I often run into the problem, so I'm sure other people do, where I don't have a dump sticker on one of my trucks, and I wind up having to use that one, and
Yeah, I apologize not having the answer right now.
that's fine. It's just always kind of,
Okay. Helen, did you have a
Yeah,
comment about it?
I had some queries, and this is for probably Justin Post. So, in this neck of the woods, and I know quite a lot about it, I feel that if you're going to have a pool, whether it's above ground or in the ground, when you fill those pools, you really impact the cone of distribution for the groundwater. Plus, most people put chlorine or something that disinfects it. And so if that water goes into the ground, it really pollutes the groundwater. And I would like the fees for pools above ground and pools in ground to be much higher, to really give people pause. We have great swimming here. We have a 25-yard pool of excellent quality at Willie's in Eastham, which I use all the time in the winter. And there's something about this that,
Using it now?
I'm not using it now because I
You
can't.
know they're closed?
They're not closed, they're putting a fire
Yeah,
system.
they're closed for
fire-
now, okay.
Yeah, they're gonna be open.
Yeah.
The other
All right.
thing I'm querying, and because and this is a little bit of a moving target because Housing Authority and Partnership are looking at doing this slightly differently, but I would like the affordable accessory dwelling unit fee not to be that much. Anything we can do.
Was that for building or for what?
This
Where
is
are you?
also under building.
What?
Yeah, it's building, commercial building, it's, in the building, under the building department's
So is it
jurisdiction.
I just want to see that. Where is it?
It's right here, it's under zoning board of appeals application fees, which
Okay.
is kind of building department. Yes, it is building department.
Let's see where it is.
CBA?
It's down at the bottom here, it's
Yeah.
$85.
Per square foot?
No,
Or for what, for inspection or for
permit.
what?
Yeah,
For a
it's
permit.
for application fee. I would just like everything having to do with that to be much lower. That's all. It's just my thought,
Janet?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Madam Chair, I would like to, have more time to review
Okay.
these. And again, I understand why they're on the agenda, Courtney, but if the departments could weigh in on if they felt increases could be made. My only suggestion for increase at this point is the use of town property. I would like to see that increased. So,
So we'll come
May-
back with suggestions next time.
can we get a hearing later in January for this?
Yeah, we have to do it we have to post it 14 days ahead of time. So
Right.
we didn't have the time for this one. So Jean, Mac, and I will work to post it for the 28th.
Great.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, so we will postpone that till next time, but write your recommendations. All right, moving on to correspondence report. Correspondence need be mentioned?
I am not getting into the obviously I'm not getting into the town hall office, so I didn't look at the actual paper in the files, of which there's less and less.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
is there anything?
No, I
No.
didn't notice anything.
No.
Okay.
We're all getting it very much electronically these days.
Except every once in a while.
Yeah.
So,
All right, minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes of December 10th, 2019, as amended.
Second?
In favor? Great, thank you. Wow, that went easily. And then we have, where is the town administrator's report?
We didn't put
We
it,
didn't
in-
do
we
it.
didn't put it in this one because this
Okay.
one was mostly just
Okay,
focused on
good.
budget, so
Budgets.
All right,
you'll
thank
see
you.
it next
And
week.
future concerns.
Did
is an
anything
area-
horrible happen that we need to know about now? Are you sure?
Positive.
Okay. Well,
It's fine, whatever. All right, well, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
so I second.
All in favor? Thank you.
So, guys.